folks, and welcome to another episode of This Is HCD. My name is Jerry Scullion. I'm a service designer, I'm a design educator, and I'm a design coach based in the wonderful city of Dublin, Ireland. Today in the show, I spoke with two of the world-leading experts in design for young minds and children. They are Professor Sonia Livingstone from the London School of Economics and Dr. Kruakae Pothong as well, and we caught up really around the work that they did around this wonderful set of cards that they created for the Digital Futures Commission in the UK. And they sent me this. It is really cool, actually. It's a set of cards that can be used throughout the design process to help you question and help you design more fitting experiences for children. Now, for anyone who's been following me on the internet for the last couple of months, you will have seen that I am deep in the world of creating Makers and Doers School, introducing children to design thinking from the age of 6 up. And we've been really busy building out the curriculum for that. So a lot of the work and a lot of the questions, should I say, in this episode speaks to that work that we're doing at the moment. But it's not just great listening for parents who probably want to understand a little bit more about how technology is being woven into their day-to-day lives and what risks are associated with that weaving of technology into children. At what age should you introduce technology to children? And what are the conditions and criteria that we as parents and guardians need to consider when introducing such technology devices? But also for just generally as us change makers, understanding where are the parameters, who defines those parameters, and what exactly we can learn as change makers, and how we should adopt and adapt our change-making process when designing new services for people. It is a fantastic episode. It really is a peek behind the curtain and speaking with two of the world's leading experts in this area. These cards are available. I know they're for free, actually, so you can request a set to be sent out to you. I'll put a link to that in the show notes or the description if you're watching this on YouTube. But really, let me talk a little bit more around these cards because they are super cool and I think they'd be a great addition to any design studio in the world. The Playful By Design toolkit can be used at any stage of the design process. It includes 3 components: principle cards, prompt cards, and playboards. And these resources can be accessed in 4 ways by the digitalfuturescommission.org.uk. They'll send you a full set of cards, or you can download the cards and print them yourself. So if you want to get access to them earlier and have a look at them, or you can download the image files and use them on your computer, or even better, I'm a big lover of Miro. They're a big sponsor of this podcast. You can clone the Playful by Design Miro board and use this online. So the prompt cards present questions to guide your design thinking. These are matched by the principle cards. Check the icon on the cards. There are 4 different types of cards: the why, the what if, the how, and the wild cards. Okay, so it's a really handy toolkit to have, especially if you are designing in that space and you want to have an additional framework to really stress test your thinking with some rigor provided to you by Sonia and Kruakae and everyone else at the Digital Futures Commission in the UK. Thank you so much for sending me these cards, Sonia. I am going to be weaving them into the work that we do here at the Makers and Doers School, and also This Is HCD. This is a great episode. Let's jump straight in. I'm delighted to have you here on the podcast. Welcome to This Is HCD. We've got Sonia Livingstone here and Kruakae from the London School of Economics, but also heavily involved with Playful By Design. Is that correct? Playful By Design, Playful for Design. But we're really excited to have you here. We're going to be talking a lot about childhood development and introducing design to the lives of children. And we connected over several emails over a wonderful card kit that you've created for free, I should add. We're putting a link to that one in the show notes, folks, for anyone who's interested in this realm of design. It's really important. But let's start off. Let's get to know each other a little bit more. We'll go Kruakae first. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do.
So I'm originally from Thailand, and we have been known for a lot of creative stuff. There are lots of design studios in Thailand, but that wasn't my path before. I was in journalism. And then I moved to do my PhD in communication studies. The focus has been on the intersection between policies, technologies, and society. And that has been my continuous research since. And then
Mhm.
I had the pleasure of starting to work with some design colleagues. And that's when I started getting my head into value sensitive design. And then I met Sonia. And then
Mhm.
the value bit becomes what is good for children.
Yeah. And we're going to tackle that big question in a second, but we'll pop over to Sonia first, and I will ask Sonia, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do.
Thank you. Well, I had a really different journey to this point from Kruakae. So I've been working as a social psychologist, looking at how children and young people engage with all things digital for a long time, and the digital world keeps changing. And I've increasingly become interested in not just trying to fix the problems, but also trying to work out what do we want? What does good look like?
Mm.
And I began working with the Five Rights Foundation, which is a small charity determined to try to make the digital world a better place for kids. So design thinking and design is a bit new to me. That's where I'm kind of making the link, and where I've really enjoyed the work that Kruakae and I have done together, because um, it's not just about what policymakers do, and it's not just about what parents do or teachers. It's also about how that digital world is designed, and how children are learning about that and thinking about that, and they have ideas about how it can be better.
Yeah, absolutely. So Five Rights Foundation seems to
Mm,
be part of both of your lives.
mm.
Um, Tell us about the origins of Five Rights. Is there five rights? Is that how did the name come about? First of all, that's probably a question that we could tackle.
It began with it began by its founder, Baroness Beeban Kidron, who is a advocate for child rights, and
Mm,
also comes from a film background.
okay.
And it's quite a small charity that is really punching above its weight in seeking to intervene, especially in terms of regulation and policy and design.
Okay.
And there are five rights originally, and they're the right to be able to know what is happening to your data online, to be able to take down what is harmful, to be able to kind of they're rights that are focused on making children's digital experience productive and
Mhm.
safe for them. But actually, over recent years, we've been working more with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and that's given us all a bigger umbrella, because it's then, how the digital world is designed is absolutely crucial to realizing the rights, but the goals become children's right to be an agent in the world, children's right to express themselves, to participate, to be protected, to have their privacy. It's kind of, so we've developed a larger rights agenda, but still
Right.
with that focus on making digital better.
And
So
if I
go ahead.
may add a little on my
Mm.
little past experience working on another research project with Five Rights, I see the connection and the continuum from the control by design that Beeman's been trying to sort of make happen, create opportunity for children. So that to me, I take it as to connect with children's agency when we expand the agenda to cover and engage with rights.
So let's boil this down and distill it down to, the world of parents and the world of children at the moment. What does the landscape look like for a child? And what are the problems that exist that you can see through your own lenses as practitioners within the digital kind of access, the proliferation of software like YouTube and applications like within the iPad world? Like, what is there a problem, an epidemic in front of us, or what are we seeing?
Where do
So
we begin?
where do
Where
we
do we
begin? There
begin?
are
I
so
know.
there are so
It's a
many
completely loaded question.
So maybe I'll begin, and I know Kirko will add, but I'll begin by saying children have always played, children have always
Yeah.
expressed themselves, children have always been creative, and today they do it on incredibly technologically complex commercial platforms. And it's a transformation from playing in the street or playing in the kitchen or playing in the playground at school to doing it on a commercial platform, which is very often a global company that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily expect to have children there, doesn't necessarily know anything about the children who are there or what their needs might be. And from parents' point of view, it's like, which of these games are beneficial? What is being taken from my child in the trade between
What's been tracked? Yeah.
what's being tracked, what data is passing, what are the risks, who are the people that my kid is playing with in multiplayer games, because that can be incredibly dangerous. So it's children have this desire to play and express themselves and be themselves and grow, but they're doing it in this really new kind of place that we
So
have to understand.
I noticed on Sunday, I was out for a drive with my mum, and I've got two kids, 6.5 and 4.5. And my mum is in her 80s, and she's like, we haven't seen one child playing on the road since we've been out driving for the last 20 minutes. I said, yeah, they're either out their back garden. I said, oh, they're doing something else. I said, like, they just don't play like we used to play, like when I was a child. When I was a child. So is play, what are the differences and the nuances between those two paradigms of playing in the street versus playing in the digital realm?
I would start with the amount of information that by engaging and playing online, the platforms made more visible.
Yeah.
And whereas in the past, if you were playing in the street, people from the opposite part of the world, if I was playing in the street in Bangkok, you wouldn't know, being in London, what I like, how do I play. But when kids move online to play, because of this complexity of technology, the way they, by just interacting with the platforms that they used for play, whether that platform is designed for them or not, what they like, what they don't like, what they're interested in, how they interact, their pathways through play are made visible without them having any control of what, to what extent could be shared, should be shared. And then you have that expanded dimension of, if I was playing on the street in Bangkok, yes, my parents would be worried about the creepy crawlies, people lurking around, but I'd have the neighbors who could also see and observe and maybe keep a watchful eye on me.
Yeah.
But what happens on Facebook or other platforms behind closed doors, which is kind of ironic in a way.
And
go ahead, Sonia.
I think what is the essence of being a child, and why did we want to start our work with play? And it was the idea that play is where children express their agency. It's kind of who they are and how they see the world and how they can imagine the world in their own way. And they love the digital environment because it offers them so many tools, and it feels like it's theirs. It's kind of cool. It's new. It's edgy. It's huge. It's powerful. But it is very hard for them to be agents in that space because, like Kruakae said, they don't know who's around. They don't really have any control over, arranging the furniture or, kind of putting their toys where they want them to be so that the space becomes meaningful. And there's all these other people they can't. So, it offers incredible opportunities, but it's just escapes their control. And children actually are used to growing up in very kind of local environments. They can chalk the pavement, or they can, rearrange the toys in their room or whatever, and feel they've defined the space for themselves.
So we also had a couple of parents over recently. I'm just going to keep on reflecting on my own perspective of being a parent of young children. And they were like, we've got no games in our house. We don't have any games, because I was talking to them about this whole kind of strive to play to learn, and then this psychological shift of playing to win in the development of a child. And I had Juan Prego, who is a a world-class trainer in design. He's based in Argentina and trains out of China as well. And he's done an awful lot of work in childhood development. And he made that distinction between the learning differences of playing to learn and then learning playing to win, and being able to capture them at a relatively young age to retain that playing to learn for as long as possible. What do you say to parents who believe, like, okay, we just want to keep them off technology? Technology is bad. That whole kind of playing to win mindset, we want to avoid it as much as possible. What would you say to those parents?
So first, we would, working within a child rights framework, we wouldn't especially advocate play to win or play to learn, but we'd
Okay.
advocate play for its own
Play.
sake.
Okay.
Children will define the purpose, not adults. I want my kid to play to learn their maths better or learn something productive for their future better.
Mhm.
It's like play in the here and now, out of their heads, in their imaginative space. They will learn through doing it. That's the magic of play, but they won't necessarily learn what adults want them to play. Okay, so technology. I mean, the thing is, I think I understand why parents get fearful, and there is a lot to fear about technology, and it's a very high pressure commercial space that wants everyone on the big products.
Yeah.
But we have in our research been discovering all the diversity of technological products, and some are beautifully designed, small companies making a game that really fosters children's imagination and creativity. Sometimes there are even big games that do that, but
Yeah.
that's why design thinking is so important, because what we found parents wanted and didn't have was almost a kind of language of design, so that they
Yeah.
could discern, this is a great space. I can have a conversation with my kid about why they're enjoying it. And this is a pressure-ed space, or
Mm.
a data exploitative space, or full of commercial sales pitches or whatever. And they need that language to discern and to discuss it with their kids. And then, there's a lot of opportunity. So it's not yes or no to tech. It's steering through what is a pretty demanding kind of landscape.
Is it a balance?
It's always a balance. Parenting is always a balance. And I always
In
say,
word,
as someone who does yoga,
yeah.
balancing is hard. Balancing is
Yeah.
not just getting the scales in balance. It's standing on one leg with, juggling, and you wobble, and you have to sway in the wrong direction and learn and readjust.
Yeah.
And, it's tough for parents. And no one is really, all those games and play opportunities out there in the digital world, they're not explained to parents. They're not,
No.
and not,
A game is a game.
yeah. Or they are explained with a heavy commercial pitch that is, this is going to turn your child, this is
Yeah.
Mozart to make your child Einstein in the future, or whatever it is. This is, which is and how are parents to judge? How are parents to know what's valuable?
Kruakae,
What-
can I ask a question
Yeah.
to you just around that balance piece? Because
Mm.
I know you were interested to jump in there. If it is a balance piece, and I believe it is a balance piece,
Mm.
what are the pieces that need to be put on that kind of scale?
Mm.
What constitutes the elements of play? Like, what are the facets and the categories of the types of play that parents need to introduce to ensure a solid childhood development?
I would say evolving capacity and agency, and
Talk to me
that
about agency. What you define, because I know some people would be like, agency. Let's break that down a little bit further.
yeah, going back to, so in the way of play, I'll use this example from one of the participants in our initial consultation.
Mhm.
So a parent described enjoying watching the kids, leaving them in the room, and it was an empty room. And then the next thing they came back, the kid was jumping up and down, playing, pretending to be the kings and queens, or hunting giant squid or something along that line. Or a parent describing their children taking over the zoo and started developing their own game, playing hide and seek on zoo.
Yeah.
That kind of agency.
Okay. That's a great definition. So going back to that scale metaphor, what are the weights that we would need to apply to ensure that that scale is being balanced?
No. I think the weight of it is, well, I would assume that parents know their children and what not just what they need, but what make them vulnerable.
Okay.
And but then that vulnerability and the protection for protection against exploitation of that vulnerability needs to be balanced
Mm.
against the growing, the growing and development of the child. You can't wrap your child up in a cotton wool. My mum wished she could.
I do.
um,
I'm one of those
but
parents.
because otherwise kids don't learn to develop resilience. They don't learn problem solving skills,
Yeah.
that kind of balance.
So the problem solving skills, like most parents will be like nodding their heads if they're listening to this, kind of saying, yeah, we understand why that could be important, because the world that we all find ourselves in now post pandemic, we have to become problem solvers, and it's not going to go away. That skill needs to be nurtured at a very early age. What are the things that you can see from your research that parents are doing and are doing well to encourage that type of skill to be fostered?
Um, I've seen an example of a couple of parents that joined our consultation
Hmm.
said they would play the game either with or before. And also, if they do play the games before they introduce that game to their child, then they also continuing not not watching as in, keeping control, but observing and helping them when they got stuck.
Okay.
One of the things that we learned I learned from reading the research on play was the idea of loose parts. And
Mm.
I think this is a really great concept. So imagine you're at home with your kids. You might just leave, instead of putting the rubbish away, you might leave a few squeezy bottles and cardboard boxes in a corner of the room. And you might just not say anything. And your
Yeah.
child might find them. And then the next thing you know, you've got a spaceship.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing that parents get. So they just kind of set the scene, but they don't direct and they don't give the goal, and the child will make it
Yeah.
happen. And one of the questions I keep asking myself is like, what are the cardboard boxes on the internet? Where can the kid go and find
Good thought, yeah.
those loose parts, those kind of possibilities that
Mm.
will really, and then can they follow through for themselves?
Yeah. What are those cardboard boxes on the internet? What have you found?
Well, one of the things we asked this question of parents and children in our consultation. So one of the things they talked about a lot at this point was a game like Minecraft,
Okay.
which seemed to kind of, and you could compare it with a game like well, and in some ways they talked about Roblox as well, and you compare it with a game like Fortnite, where the kind of goals are more set and the pieces are more arranged. But Minecraft, there were all kinds of possibilities, and they could make a box and
Mm.
call it whatever they wanted to, and other people
Yeah.
might come and join in, and they might not. But in the child's head, they've kind of expressed themselves and their agency.
So both of those games are being,
Mm,
reported to have high addiction rates that can lead
mm,
to anxieties.
mm,
Young children don't have that capacity to be
mm,
able to say no
mm,
and to just say,
mhm,
okay, I've had enough, to
mm,
be able to self-regulate.
mm, mm,
How and what would you say to parents who are struggling with that? They say, okay,
mm,
cool, well, we'll introduce Minecraft.
mm,
We realize that there's got
mm,
some play capabilities there.
mm, mm,
My child is struggling to switch off from it
mm,
because they're more susceptible to being addicted.
mm. Yeah, I think it's a great question. So in designing Playful by Design, what do we want? We said, okay, we
Yeah,
want the game to be open-ended. So that's the kind of cardboard box.
really
The
important.
possibilities are there,
Yeah.
and it could go in many directions. We also said, kind of really promote the child's agency, not just to play as they want, but also to leave when they want. Don't create that kind of
Mm.
compulsive feel that you've got to keep on playing and keep on playing. So partly we wanted the designers to think about making it easy for a child just to leave or put it down for a bit, to be interrupted, and then to go back to it. because that's what we do, in the kind of offline world.
Yeah.
But from the parent's point of view, so I would say look out for those features. Is it a game that your child can walk away from easily and come back to and carry on if they want to, or another day? But also make sure that you understand, is your child still feeling excited in the space, imaginative in the space, able to express themselves in the space, or are they beginning to feel, I've got to stay because everyone's there and I've got to finish and I can't leave else I'll look like an idiot. And those are the things to look for. And then at that point, provide a better alternative, or, refer back to a conversation you've had with your child before about what is good for them, what do they enjoy, and what help they might need in pulling away.
Yeah.
Because I think kids are beginning to see for themselves that sometimes it's too much and they need to pull away, but they need a bit of help or encouragement or something great to do, or just dinner time.
Yeah, absolutely. Kruakae, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I just wanted to add from a design perspective, it's not impossible, although this balance between interaction and having a cutoff point, or supporting children's agency to feel that they can walk away when they've had enough. It's a constant struggle among designers. This is our learning from our process to develop this card, Playful by Design card, as a design tool for designers. But it can be done. And an example for that is by creating an endpoint, a natural endpoint, as part of the progression of the game. But then, and then so kids don't feel like, oh, there's a new challenge, excitement all the time, and keep going. But there is an excitement. It's up and then down, and coming to a natural cutoff point. Observe the day, maybe, or dinner time, or something along that line that would help encourage kids to sort of wean off. That would also work.
Okay.
One of the hardest things that we found in our conversations with parents and with designers is about risk taking. So all the theories of child development are that children need to take some risk. They need to climb a tree and fall down, not too high, but climb a tree and fall a little way, or scrape their knee, and learn and pick themselves up and know their limits. And then next time, try to run faster or climb higher or whatever. And that is how children learn. It's how they gain confidence. It's how they, develop their capacities. But if you say to anyone online, let your child take a few risks, that's terrifying. That's terrifying for parents. And it's pretty terrifying for designers and product developers as well, because they don't want harm happening on their sites, and they don't want the reputational damage, and they don't want the responsibility. So online tends to be either made incredibly safe, or designers will say, okay, we know kids are playing Fortnite or whatever it is, but we don't want them to be there. Maybe they're even going to begin to age gate them out of those spaces, because we don't want to take the responsibility. And it's a bit like the digital world is, it's either like having a 6-lane motorway in front of your house, so you don't want your kid to go out and play in the street, or an incredibly safe garden and they can't ever get out of the high wall. And that's the design challenge, I think.
One of the things as parents, you're able to self-identify when a child is ready to move to the next stage of saying, okay, listen, they're on the swing. I think they're going to be okay in the trampoline. How do you know when a child is ready for technology to be introduced?
It's such a hard question, because parents remember what it was like on the swing or on the trampoline from their own childhood, and now they're in a world that they don't have those kind of visceral memories and own their personal experience to fall back on. And games don't come, this is something that probably should be regulated and better designed for. They don't come with good age ratings. They don't come with good, if you go to the App Store, it says everything is 4+. And it's not 4+. It's graded, it's complex. And even within a game, there isn't always that kind of progression from you've begun here and now here's the thing to do next, because every game is trying to monetize attention. So it says, stay here with us forever.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that is, parents have a gut feel. The only way they can know really is to play the game with their children and see, are they bored? Are they kind of pushing it around, or are they out of their depth? And they should have, they need something a bit easier than this, or more straightforward.
But then that is perhaps what makes it quite difficult and unequal for a lot of children, because not every parent has that time and energy to be playing the games with their children. Not every parent has that appetite for playing the games or the games with their children. So there is also that responsibilities from the makers of these products and services as well, so that not everything falls down to the parents, that they have to take that responsibility to spend the time to learn, to progress, in order to be able to recommend the good things for their kids.
Sure. One of the things in Playful by Design, when I stumbled across it, I remember I was in bed when I saw it, truthfully, and I was like, it was like one of those things where, I'd no one to share it to. I was like, oh, this is amazing. It was midnight at night. And I was like, and I saved it for the next day, and I looked at it. And when I looked at it, there didn't seem to be these age gaps, or the age kind of like, this is for a 4 to 6 year old. And I found that really interesting, because an awful lot of the stuff that you find online, they say suitable for 4 to 6, and then 6 to 8, and so forth. What was the thinking behind that? And I know this is a loaded question, but playing devil's advocate here, what is the thinking around that, and not having those age categories or suggested ages on some of the modules within Playful by Design?
So in a child rights framework, rather than saying 4 your child is ready for this, or at 12 your child is ready for that, you think about evolving capacity. It's a bit of a clunky term, to be honest, but it's children develop at different rates, and they develop unevenly, and they develop best when they're always a bit at the edge of what they can do, but they're not like super challenged. So we emphasize the idea of being age appropriate, and then leave that as a judgment for the parent, for the child, and for the service provider. Because what is age, what suits an age is, it's just going to be so variable. Some children are more vulnerable. Some children have got a lot of support. Some children are a bit ahead of their class. We didn't want to put them in boxes, but we did want to prioritize it as a consideration for everyone to keep in mind.
And this concept of age appropriateness from the perspective of design and the different design features. Some features will be appropriate for younger children, and or the different age bands, and so on and so on. It's pretty complex, and designers struggle with that all the time.
And designers have to think about anyone who would be on the service. They can't really say, okay, well, this child is super competent and understands all these things. So there's a mismatch, basically, between those who are providing the products, who try to go for a really broad age range, and parents who know, my child has just mastered this and needs, something that kind of gives them a chance to flower in this particular, or develop in a particular way. So it's a mismatch, and that makes it hard. And that's, I'll go back to agency at that point, because I think children have that kind of visceral sense of, can I climb that tree? Children generally know they have that, but online it's very hard to make that judgment. Is this a safe place to play, or can I manage that game?
One of the things that I noticed, like whenever we go away on holidays with the kids, we tend to give them access to YouTube Kids. Okay, now it's the child-friendly version of YouTube, and it seems like such a small little introduction to the interface, but they have tiles below the video that I noticed that whenever we introduce it, straight away they're watching a video, and then they're getting about 30 seconds in, and they're clicking the next thumbnail, and they're being caught in this loop, this kind of design loop that anyone who's involved with design will know. And it's all about getting the impressions for the advertisers and seeing what works and so forth. What are the risks that you see with introducing technology to children too early? because that ability to know that you're in that loop
mm,
seems to be, 7, 8 years old when they're going
mm,
to go, okay, look, I want to watch the video and I want to watch it to the
mm,
end.
mm,
What are
mm,
those risks for introducing it too early?
mm. So I think at this point we are a bit beyond what the research is. I couldn't say
Yeah.
categorically research says this is the risk,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I could say that there's enough research and enough experience to say what is vital is for children to gradually develop their own judgment, and they can
Yeah.
only judge in an environment that they kind of understand. So they
Okay.
don't understand, they can see the screen, they understand the screen pretty early, but they can't understand behind the screen. Advertising
Yeah.
companies, data brokers, commercial imperatives for profit, that's no way can they
Yeah.
understand that. So I think ideally, you'd have the screen designed in a way that it operates in terms that children can understand. And some producers, of course, will do that. But even YouTube Kids, like you say, its number one imperative is to
Mm.
get kids to graduate to YouTube and to
Yeah.
get the data. And it is owned by, one of the biggest corporates going. So they're making an effort, and they've curated some of the content, and they've taken out some of the
Mm.
problematic content, and they've taken off the comments, which are often dodgy part of the content, but
Mhm.
they're still a business.
Yeah. And it's not
And
moderate.
ultimately you might say, look for a non-commercial. If you don't want your child to be locked into commercial pressures, you need a non-commercial product.
For example.
Well, I could say public service broadcasting
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
a lot of, I think there's a fair number of civil society museums make games.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
There's various children's organizations make games. Sometimes local councils or child-friendly cities will make
Yeah.
a child-friendly interface or services. Educators
Excellent.
sometimes make games that they want, to learn something.
Really good
Creatives
suggestions.
try things out. I think there is, but like I said at the beginning, it's hard to find it because we're all directed towards the big corporates.
Yeah. The ones that are on the tip of our tongue tend to be the ones that are
Yeah,
there to make money.
yeah,
That's one of the things that I've learned. Now
yeah.
let's talk about Playful
Mm,
by Design,
mm,
because it is amazing. And
mm,
I'm not just saying that because I know Sonia, I think you are leading. This is your initiative,
mm, mm,
and
mm,
Kruakae, you're
mhm.
involved as one of the
Absolutely, she is,
workers.
yes.
So where did this come from? I know, Sonia, your background is in
Mm.
this space, but where did it originate from, and what was the premise, and what was the objective behind the policy?
So we began by recognizing that by design solutions
Mhm.
are becoming very popular among policymakers and the kind of whole multi-stakeholder world of thinking about online experiences. So there's a lot of work gone into safety by design, how to make a product safe before it ever reaches the market, privacy by design, security by design that Kruakae worked on before. But those are like the hygiene factors. Sure,
Yeah,
you want the space to be safe and private and secure, but that's not good. That could be
yeah,
boring. So we thought playful by design, we put that concept into an already sort of expanding policy area and say we
mm,
also have to design for what good could look like and what would be
yeah,
really support children's. So in our Playful by Design toolkit, which I think Kruakae might say something about, it's designed to have lots of prompts for designers to help them think, how in my design can I be welcoming to a child on a website or in a game? How can I? What are the levers I can pull to enhance their imagination? What are the ways in which I can enable open-ended play instead of constantly pushing them in the same direction?
mm.
So it was about thinking of the design levers that could go into promoting those bigger goals that are about the positive as well as dealing with the problems.
So what you're talking about there, like security by design, and
Mm.
I mean, you might have mentioned
Safety, yeah.
safety by design, and even functionality by design as well.
Mm. Mm.
They're all facets of what we would call a good service. Playful by
Mm.
Design, a good service. And Lou Down, who
Mm.
is a great friend of mine and a great friend of the podcast, wrote Good
Mhm.
Services, who was
Mhm.
formerly the head of service design for the British government.
Mhm.
When it comes to Playful by Design, how do you want designers who are listening to this, or change makers generally,
Mm.
who listen to this podcast, how do you want them and how do you see them
Mm.
using the toolkit
Mm.
in their practice?
Perhaps I'd say, well, I hope that they'd use the toolkit to expand their um, initial sort of understanding of rights that tends to be or could be restricted to the safety and the protection agenda of rights,
Mhm.
and then expand it to more not goal oriented, but agency oriented,
Hmm.
whereby they think about they themselves with the role to provide for the opportunities for kids to explore, to grow, to develop, to express themselves within the safe boundaries, um, as 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 supporters for kids to participate and engage actively in the world. So I'll give you an example of one of these cards, and here is the what if prompt cards. Um,
Mhm.
it's geared at sort of engaging a particular way of thinking that expands that thinking of, and it says, what if a child could rebuild the environment with friends? So this connects to that imaginative aspect
Hmm.
um, that we want to promote in Playful by Design as well. So this is a call for,
And we wanted the cards themselves to be playful. I mean, we have
yes,
designed them that the designer, we don't want them to be boring and dull, but they are full of like wacky ideas and mind expanding suggestions for the
yes,
designers. And so we have designed some games for the designers, which we call the kind of playboards, so they can
Yeah.
play together. But also some designers have told us they just keep the pack by them on their desk.
Good job.
And every now and again they flip through and something says, what if, you were going to design a world, an environment, I don't know, what if you're going to design a world where children could play with their grandparents? How would you, what would that look like? How would you do that? How would you make it safe? How would you make it, fun?
Yeah.
How would you deal with multiple, groups at the same time? So it's full of what ifs. It's full of how
Prompt.
can you do it? Prompts, yeah, but it keeps in mind what the goals are, which is to make it a better,
Yeah.
more,
So it's that whole
yeah,
divergence piece
mm,
of
yeah,
identifying new ways of
yeah.
yeah,
incorporating the
yeah,
mindset.
yeah.
And the
Or,
way we design the different processes and
mm,
the way to cut the cards, if you like, we appeal to designers' processes, a way of thinking, which is convergence and divergence and then convergence again.
yeah.
So there'd be a moment of reflection, deep
Mm,
thinking in terms of, oh, okay, well, I've chosen to put this feature in. Does that work?
mm,
Why did I put this in?
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And then if your answer to that question doesn't quite complete, then you might ask yourself, okay, maybe I need to expand my thinking a bit. Let's
Sure.
pull out a what if card and then narrow it down to, okay, well, do I really affect this? Create this experience for the child.
Yeah. If you imagine Playful by Design was adopted by every change maker in the world, right? And I hope it is. Anyone listening, I encourage you to click on the link in the show notes and check it out and support the work. Imagine everyone was using it. What's the hope that you would like to see trickle through in 5, 10 years' time from the work that you've done? What does that look like in terms of the benefit to the development of the technological world?
Children will be happier and more productive and more generative online, and parents will have stopped panicking about what's going to happen to them in digital spaces. So children will be, because they
Mm.
already think it's their space, but they don't feel welcome and
Who the children
well
don't feel
served
welcome.
there. Online, no, they think they're always being told, you shouldn't be here, you're too young, you've lied about your age.
Mhm.
There are weird strangers here who, have ill intent. So they don't always feel welcome, no. So they would feel welcome and they would feel empowered and they would feel that they can do what they want to do. But I think also the design world will have to change. And I don't think people often think you can either serve children or you can make a profit. I think we will have a generative process by which companies discover they can make profits in different
Mm.
ways. They can make profits by better serving children rather than by exploiting children. And that's the kind of big business
Mm.
change that I think has to happen, because everyone knows the business model is a problem and actually
Yeah.
it's exploiting everybody. So this is one way of trying to encourage everyone to think of it differently.
Are there government policies that need to change there to allow designers to kind of not disrupt, but uproot that age group? So at the moment, the reason why businesses aren't going there is
Mm.
there's regulation. Isn't that
Mm.
correct?
Um, Well,
Yes.
regulation can take people in multiple directions. There could
Mm.
be, so there's a lot of regulation under discussion in Europe that and now being developed that could ease this task. So
Okay.
I could say against monopolies might be a starting
Yeah.
point, so that it isn't just the big companies that dominate the landscape, and there's
Mhm.
more chance for independents and creatives and startups. But also, I think once it's clear that you have to regulate for safety,
Mhm.
then I think a lot of places will become better for children. And then what we need is a diversified market so that parents and children can begin to make choices that actually serve their interests. And some of the kind of regulation against addiction, I mean, like against loot boxes, against gambling like
Mm.
processes, some of the data protection regulation is really helpful, just to make sure that you don't enter a game world and have all your data kind of sucked up and used against you. There's lots of different kinds of regulation that are
Mm.
coming together. We've brought them all together in our work in the idea of child rights by design, which says think about the whole thing: imagination, play, safety, privacy, security, everything. It all
Mhm.
matters online. And there's lots of different kinds of regulation that frames that, but is changing. And it's got to be complied with. It's got to be made, real.
Yeah,
I'd
absolutely.
say the one thing that the regulations that Sonia have spoken about doesn't quite cut it or capture it well enough is the regulation that motivates um,
The business models.
practices or design
Mm,
design
mm,
practices that encourage agency,
Mm.
support development, promote well-being. It's more of protection agenda and
Yeah.
prevention
mm,
agenda.
mm, mm,
It takes more than just the regulation to motivate to motivate business to see the value in providing opportunities for agency, for creativity, for imagination and
Mm.
expression.
mm.
Do you, and I know I'm asking some binary questions here, but do you have suggestions on who's doing it well out there? Like, so for people to follow on and learn more about Playful by Design, but like if there are parents out there and they want to encourage, I know we mentioned Minecraft and
Mm,
that other one I
mhm,
can't remember.
mm,
What other apps and games that you feel are open ended in their approach and they've
mm,
utilized the same sort of mind set that you include in Playful by
mm,
Design? Are you
mm.
okay to give a shout out to any of those other businesses where people can continue their learning?
Well, I might mention children.
SoniaLivingston.co.uk.
No, I don't. I have no business interest
I'm
at
only
all.
joking.
I
Mm.
uh, Part of our work was done in with support from Lego, and I think
Okay,
Lego
awesome.
has tried pretty hard in this regard.
Yeah,
One of our commissioners was from the BBC, I think Children's BBC, and I would say public
Asman.
service
Yeah.
broadcasters. One of the interesting relationships that we've formed, I might give a plug to, is Andy Robertson's Taming
Yes, I was
Gaming.
going to say that. Yeah.
I don't know if you know that, but he's like he kind of curates a parent space on for games, all games. And then
Okay.
he's taken our Playful by Design criteria and he said, okay, on these criteria, these are the games that you might like these ones kind of
Okay,
match up
awesome.
well. So taming gaming is a kind of and it's very parent friendly. So
Okay, I'll find a link for that and I'll put it in the
mm,
show notes as
mm,
well. Yeah.
mm,
I've got a deep connection with Playmobil,
mm,
and
mm,
the Playmobil Pro kits.
mm, mm.
They don't have any digital games yet that I know of,
Okay,
but
all
the
right.
physical games. So, are there other games that are kind of integrated? Because I'm really interested in the artificial reality kind of space at the moment. We've got some stuff with Nintendo.
Mm.
Have you any of those recommendations? It's okay if you don't. I'm putting you on the spot here.
Kruakae, do you want to say something about the value of hybrid games? Kids love hybrid
Yeah.
games, and we thought a lot about Pokemon Go, which was not a good
Mm.
example, but
Okay.
points to something that children do because it was so commercialized. And but
Yeah, I can
but it,
imagine.
on the other hand, it pointed to what children want and where there is, I think, a space for development.
Yeah.
So one of our consultation sessions, a parent mentioned an application that allows you to scan a plant or
Mm-hmm.
butterfly or something, and then it gives you that information.
Yeah.
So we take it as an example of a product not necessarily built for children, but could be harnessed in this hybrid
Yeah.
way. So you have that um, intersection, if you like, between the digital and the physical, and
Yeah.
and it also takes kids out and about in the physical world, rather than locking them into the
Mm.
screen and so on. And it encourages and fosters that relationship building between parents and child. And the parents
Yeah.
enjoyed it, the
That's
children
awesome.
enjoyed it.
That's a really good example. Another one, I don't know if you've experienced the Mario Kart artificial reality where you build your own track in your house and
Mm.
you use your Nintendo Switch, and the little
Mhm,
car that you buy is a physical car. It's got a camera in the front.
mhm, mhm,
So the child explores the creativity of building a track. And
mhm.
then, they create all these obstacles to navigate, and you literally use your controller to move around your own house with the car.
Okay.
And my 6-year-old and 4-year-old, their minds were blown, which I don't know is a good thing. But they had so much fun building a track and what they could
So
use from the
so I love the sound of that. And what I would
Mm.
say from the point of Playful by Design is then we would have the questions for the designer, but also for you. So do they get addicted to it, or do they feel they can stop when they want to?
Yes.
Does it take their data, or does it respect their privacy? Can
Yeah.
they chat to other people with other cars on the road? And is there a kind of a
No.
safety question? So, those might be, so Playful
Mm.
by Design always has this kind of list. It's
This
like a bit of a
framework almost.
checklist. Yeah. And a
How
framework.
would you
Yeah.
find out, Sonia, what data has been tracked by something like Nintendo Switch or similar consoles?
Well, I think every company does have a privacy policy, but a privacy policy online can be a lot of pages. I've trawled through
Mm.
many. They're meant to be readable by the user. And if the user is 6, it's meant to be readable by your 6-year-old.
Wow, I did
Doesn't
not know
meet
that.
doesn't meet that criterion, but that's what I mean by, we have some regulations, but they've got to be complied with. But very
Really
often you
interesting.
read it and it says, we're going to protect your data, we treat your data with
Yeah,
responsibly. And then it says, and we share it with third parties, and we won't tell you who they
and they won't
are.
tell you.
No.
With GDPR then, like, I'm in Ireland, so, like,
Yeah.
that's a huge gray area, and it's
It's a huge grey area. And I think until the regulators really think this is a problem and parents really care about this stuff, I don't
Mm,
think they're going to prioritize it over some of the big data breaches or data leaks
right.
because they've got limited attention. So I think if parents care about where their kids' data is going, they should make their voices heard.
Who do they make their voices heard to?
To the data protection authority, to the Irish ICO, in your case, Information Commissioner.
Okay.
But there is a data protection authority in every country.
Yeah,
It's hard. I know
yeah.
the parents are not used to writing to regulators, say, hey, I don't understand, where my kids' data is going on Nintendo, whatever it
Nintendo
is.
Switch, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I got
Among
on
the
since
way around that would be by consumer choices. So there are, if you don't need to read too much into the privacy policy. You could just look into the setting. Does it
Okay.
allow you to set, say, no external connection or something along that line? Does it offer that control?
Okay.
If not, balance that against the kind of risk you foresee in the way it could be
Yeah.
used. And I underline the ways it could be used rather than just the way you intended it to be used.
Sure. That's a really good point. Like they don't make it easy to find those things.
They
So
don't make it easy. No.
it's either within the console or within the browser, and if you're using online, or within the application, and there's two different settings and which one is overriding which. And that's part of, I guess, safety by design as well. Like,
In Ireland and a number of other countries, there's also a children's commissioner. I think the children's commissioners are quite kind of public, available. Parents can.
Ireland has been very good. I
Yeah.
lived in Australia
Yeah.
for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I'm home 5 years, and we do have conversations about these things on the news.
Yeah. Yes.
So it is. I think they're talking about it an awful lot more. I was about to say a few minutes ago, I could talk to you, both of you, for probably a week, I'd say, before I could come up for air. But if people want to reach out to either of you, I'll put a link to Playful by Design in the show notes of this episode. How might they get in touch with you if they wanted to ask more questions?
So all the work we've been talking about is done by the Digital Futures Commission. And so Google Digital Futures Commission, and we have a contact point, and we can put that in the show notes as well. But we do answer the contact.
Yeah, you do
respond.
you
Yes.
got back to me very
In
quickly.
fact, that's how we met you.
Yeah, you got back to me very quickly.
Yes.
Which
So
is great.
we are responsive, and we're really keen to hear what people's thoughts are. Yeah.
But look, I always end every episode with This Is HCD by thanking you for your time and your energy and your vulnerability being put on the spot and having these open and free-flowing conversations. So listen, thank you for giving me your time. I truly appreciate it. I know our listeners will really enjoy this conversation as well. Listen, best of luck with everything to do with Playful by Design. I'm delighted to kind of get my hands on these cards, hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Explore it and play with it. And I encourage everyone listening to do the same. So listen, thank you so much, and welcome back on the show whenever you want again.
Right. Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.